बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. صلوات Respected brothers and sisters and elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First and foremost, my heartiest congratulations to everyone, all the mu'mineen and mu'minat and the Imam of our time for the most auspicious occasion in the Islamic calendar, regarding which our sixth Imam says that the most holiest, the most sacred, the most sanctified and auspicious Eid within the calendar year, it is Eid-ul-Ghadeer. I don't know what the program is and how much I'm supposed to recite, but I will try to not speak more than half an hour. If time permits, then I will speak a bit more. And it's very important that our young generation realizes what actually transpired in Ghadir, how it all unfolded. When approximately about 2 months and 10 to 20 days were remaining from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel came and informed him that you are going to depart the world, and therefore you need to inform the people, as this is going to be your last year, and this, if you're going to perform the Hajj, it is going to be your farewell Hajj. So the Prophet ﷺ informed all the people that this is going to be my farewell Hajj. Whoever wants to come along. Approximately 90,000 individuals from the city of Medina, they gathered and they were willing to come to, they wanted to go for Hajj. And approximately 30,000 were from Mecca. So altogether you had approximately 120,000 individuals which were gathered in the year 10 Hijri for the final farewell Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, when it was the 9th of Arafah, Hazrat Jibreel came upon the Prophet ﷺ and he said, since this is your final year, you have to inform the people about your successor. So the Prophet ﷺ on the plains of Arafah tried to mention to the people who his success. This is all well documented. This is not just from the perspective of Shia scholars. Rather, it is well documented in all books of Islamic literature. So the Prophet ﷺ attempts to tell the people who his next successor is going to be. Where? In Arafat. He only hints. He mentions about 12 authorities that are going to come in future, and they are all going to be appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The minute he says that, there's a ruckus, there's commotion. People raise their voices, they cut him off, they do not permit him to speak. Therefore, what the Prophet ﷺ decides that he's going to postpone it. He backtracks because he's going to spiral into a chaos. People are not receptive, there's a resistance from the people. So he decides to backtrack. Why do you think the people resisted? The reason is because the people of Mecca, in the first 13 years of the Prophet's life, they were the ones who had waged war against Islam. They are the ones who waged war against the Prophet ﷺ. And the greatest defender, the greatest supporter of Islam and the Prophet ﷺ, who fought against the enemies of Islam and killed many of them, was who? Was Imam Ali alayhi salam. So they knew very well where this was heading. Therefore, they began to raise their voices and cut the Prophet ﷺ off, so he could not say what he wanted to say. This is well documented. Henceforth, the Prophet ﷺ decides that I'm not going to announce anything in Mecca. I will go to Medina and I will announce there. While he is traveling to Medina and he reaches a land called Khum. Now this is where the intersection was, where people from different parts of the world had, whenever they would come to Hajj, they had their separate routes. So somebody who's come from Egypt, somebody who's come from Syria, somebody who's come from Iraq, they would go to their respective routes. And this is, Ghadir literally means an oasis. Khum was the place. When you say ghadir-e-khum, it means the oasis of Khum, i.e. where the water was accumulated. This is where Hazrat Jibreel comes down, this time with a revelation which says, Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik. You have to do it now. Previously it wasn't specified when you have to declare and how you have to declare. The Prophet ﷺ nonetheless attempted. But this time, while the Prophet ﷺ is heading towards Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a revelation comes down that you have to convey the message which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned you to do it, and you have to do it now, no more further delays. And this is where the Prophet ﷺ makes that historic speech and those historic arrangements. And he gave a speech for 1 whole hour. This is completely unheard of at those times. Back in the days when the Prophet ﷺ used to speak, he would only give you a lecture for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Right now, for example, I'm speaking, my voice is reaching out everywhere. Within this, in the ladies' side, upstairs, everywhere. Back in the days, they did not have microphones. So if the Prophet ﷺ had to say something, only 15, 20 individuals within the line, they would hear it, then they would have to repeat it. It would kept be repeating. So that's why the lectures had to be very, very short. But here in Ghadir, the Prophet ﷺ continuously speaks for an entire hour. Now, I'm not going to obviously exhaust you with exactly what the whole entire speech is. You can see that Imam Baqir alayhi salam extensively, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is well documented, but just to give you a hint of exactly what he said in the beginning. He says, Alhamdulillah wa nasta'inuk wa nu'minu bik wa natawakkalu alayk wa na'udhu min Allah min shururi anfusina wa sayyi'ati a'malana. He says, all praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We take refuge to Him from all the evils that we have. We believe in Him and we put complete our trust and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says, Amma ba'd. People know that I'm departing this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me a very, very important responsibility. Inni mas'oolun wa antum mas'ool. فَمَاذَا قَائِلُونَ. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold us all accountable on the day of judgment with regards to the message that I'm about to convey to you. What do you have to say with regards to that? They all said collectively that نَشْهَدُ أَنَّكَ بَلَغْتَ وَنَصَحْتَ. We will on the day of judgment will testify that you have conveyed your message and there is no burden upon your shoulders. So you just freely convey the message. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, Alastum tashhadun an la ilaha illallah. Do you not testify there is no God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I am the messenger, that the Quran is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Jannat and Jahannam, these are the truth? They all said, Qalu bala. Bala in Arabic means, of course, it's a given. They did not just say yes, they said, of course, it's a given, we testify. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he's basically setting up a stage. He says, on the day of judgment, you will be asked about the two weighty things. There were certain individuals, they were like, what? They'd already forgotten about that. They were like, what are the ma'athiqlain? What are the two weighty things? The Prophet ﷺ says, it is the book of Allah and my Ahlul Bayt. Then he says, tell me, man awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim. Tell me who has a greater right, who has the greater authority over the souls of the mu'mineen. Alastu awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim. This is ayah of the Quran. Do I not have a greater right? This is, for example, this is my body, I have a right over my body. Nobody has a right over my body. But if the Prophet ﷺ comes and commands me to do something, then he has a greater right over me. They all said, yes, you have a greater right over us. So this is when the Prophet ﷺ says that Inna Allah Moulai. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my master. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a greater right over me. Wa ana mu'lal mu'mineen. And I am the master of all the mu'mineen. Man kuntu mawla fahadha aliyun mawla. So whoever recognizes me as a mawla, i.e. I am an authority over all your souls, similarly, there's no disparity, Imam Ali alayhi salam has the same authority over you. And then he says, Oh Allah, whoever supports Ali, you be their supporters. Whoever has enmity towards Ali, you be their enemy. وَأَدْرِكِ الْحَقْ مَعَهُ حَيْثُ دَارَ. That make the truth follow Imam Ali alayhi salam. This is astonishing. He does not say that make Imam Ali alayhi salam follow the truth. He says make the truth follow Imam Ali alayhi salam. I.e. he is greater than the truth. He is actual truth. So if there were ever going to be confusion, if there's ever a civil war, if Muslims are fighting one another, if the wife of the Prophet ﷺ wages a war against the Prophet against Imam Ali alayhi salam, it is very obvious who is with the truth, because the Prophet ﷺ has already established the criteria that the truth will follow wherever Imam Ali alayhi salam goes. فَبَلَّغِ الْحَاضِرَ الْغَائِبِ, the ones who are present, the ones who know about this affair, it is wajib on them to tell the ones who do not know. And when this happens, the Prophet ﷺ tells everybody to pay allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam inside the water. For 2 days, because the crowd was approximately more than 100,000 individuals, they slowly came and they paid allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam. And when they all paid allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam, then the verse came, الْيَوْمُ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا, that today I have perfected your religion, today I have completed the infinite blessings for humanity, and today I am satisfied with Islam as a religion. Which means that till yesterday, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not satisfied with the religion of Muhammad. All the toil, all the endeavor, all the struggle for over the course of the 23 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, till you do not mention the wilayah to Imam Ali alayhi salam, I do not accept it. I am not satisfied, I am not happy. Now, this is a very summarized, there's many aspects to this story, but I have summarized exactly what transpired in Ghadir. Now, one of the objections that normally people tend to make about Ghadir is about the veracity, about the authenticity of the event and the hadith of Ghadir, because the Prophet ﷺ explicitly said, Man kuntu Moula fahada aliyun Moula. Let me tell you, in Islamic history, in Islamic literature, you are not going to find many instances which is more reliable and authentic than the event of Ghadir and hadith of Ghadir. Considering the fact that so much important literature has been lost, considering the fact that for an entire century is speaking about what the Prophet ﷺ had uttered was haram, was banned, despite that we have at the very least 110 companions who have attested to the fact that the Prophet ﷺ at Ghadir said, Man kuntu Moula fahada aliyun Moula. This is astonishing, this is unprecedented. Nobody can argue against that. Nobody can say the event of Ghadir did not, it's a historical fact that the Prophet ﷺ gave khutbah on the day of Ghadir and he raised the hands of Imam Ali alayhi salam. It's a historical fact. Certain individuals, for example, Fakhrul Razi is one of the prominent scholars of the Sunni faith. He has written a book, Tafsir of Fakhrul Razi. Inside that he says that I have found 400 ways, 400 evidence, 400 paths, arba'atumia turuk, in establishing the event of Ghadir and the hadith of Ghadir. But then you know what he says? وَلَكِنْ فِي نَفْسِي مِنْهُ شَيْءٍ. However, my heart is not at ease. However, it doesn't settle down with me. Allahu Akbar. 400 ways, he himself is admitting that I can concur, I can say that this is a historical fact through 400 ways. But then still, he says, my heart is not at ease. You make judgment whatever you want to make. You know the next objection that they will make? They will say that we reject Ghadir and the hadith of Ghadir because Bukhari does not mention it. Astonishing. You have over the course of so many centuries, some 300, Allama Amini mentions 360 top-notch Sunni scholars have attested to the fact that Ghadir took place and the Prophet ﷺ said what he said. 360 scholars, 120 companions of the Prophet ﷺ, 84 tabi'een. Fakhrul Razi, who came centuries after Bukhari, says I had 400 ways to establish. So if Bukhari does not mention it, the problem is with Bukhari, not with the event. That's not the problem with the event, there's no problem with Hadith al-Ghadir, the problem is Bukhari. The problem is the conundrum that the Muslim face, the predicament that the Muslim face is that if they admit that Bukhari deliberately did not mention Ghadir, what will happen? Their entire creed, their entire ideology is based on the fragile structure of Bukhari and Muslim. If they admit to this, that Bukhari has a bias, he's a bigot, He's a hypocrite when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Their entire ideological structure, the ideological system is going to come crushing down. That's the issues that they have, unfortunately. He must have had 100 ways to establish. If he does not mention it, whose problem is that? That is not the problem of Ghadir. That is not the problem of the Prophet ﷺ that he mentioned, because that is a historical established fact. So the problem is with Bukhari. See, we need to know these aspects in order to defend wilayat. The next questions that they will raise is with regards to the meaning of the word Moula. They cannot disprove that's a historical fact. Okay, so if somebody does not want to believe something, they will all, if they are stubborn, they will always come out with some excuses or the other. The meaning of Moula. Okay, I agree, there are many meanings of Moula, but the core meaning of Moula is master. Somebody who owns, somebody who's Malik. Malik is somebody who owns, and therefore he has a greater right. Therefore he has a authority over. That is the core meaning. But yes, there's a meaning of friend, there's a meaning of supporter, there's a meaning of guardian. These are other meanings of Moula. In the Quran, the word Moula has been mentioned many a times. All you have to do is look, what is the meaning of Moula in the Quran? Every time that you will look, the word meaning of Moula, it's in reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is master. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a greater right over us. There is one instant in Surah Al-Hadid, verse number 15, where it is in reference to people who will be going to hell. Ma'wakumun nar hiya maulakum. Those people who will be going to hell, it says your resting place is hell. Hell is your Moula. What do you think the meaning is? Hell is your Moula. Hell being a Moula, it means hellfire has a greater right over you because of the fact that you were disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now hell has authority over you to punish you, to burn you. Hell is not your friend. Hell is not your supporter. Hell is not your guardian. It can't be that. Also, Moula and Wali are same root words. It has the same meaning of master. Everybody knows when a girl who is dependent on her parents, if she wants to get married, she needs the permission of who? Her Wali, her Moula. If the meaning of Wali is friends, then she doesn't need to go to her father to seek a permission. She can just go to her friend, and she can go to a supporter and just say, well, you're my friend, you will definitely back me. I want to get married, you give permission? No, you go to your father because he is in charge of your affairs. That is Moula. And aside from that, even if you were to look at the context, this is very important, the preparations, the arrangements, the prerequisites, the context. The Prophet ﷺ took the trouble of halting 100,000 individuals in scorching heat. At that time, it was very difficult to travel in those days. And then he made arrangement where he made a pulpit of palanquins. He took allegiance of everybody for 2 days inside water. Why does he need to do all of that? Just to announce to the people that Ali is my friend? When was Ali an enemy of the believers? Do you have any evidence that Imam Ali alayhi salam was enemy of the believers? No. You would not expect a wise man to do that. That if a wise man was to stop 100 individuals, they were all heading home, you will say, why? Just to announce to the people that he is my friend? Yet you're saying that the Prophet ﷺ, look how disrespectful. This is a mockery of the Prophet ﷺ. It's blasphemous that the Prophet ﷺ would take such troubles and put so many people into trouble just to let the people, the world know that Imam Ali alayhi salam is the friend. Everybody knows that Imam Ali alayhi salam is his greatest supporter. Imam Ali alayhi salam has fought for the Prophet ﷺ and put his line more than anybody else. There's no doubt about that. So it makes absolutely no sense. You know the next thing they will say, well, if it was with regards to the wilayah, then why did he not announce it in Arafah or at Hajj? Well, he tried. He tried. And secondly, when they rejected, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically chose Ghadir. Because had they accepted in Hajj, then they would have diluted, then they would have distorted. They would have said, what, it was the days of Hajj. You can see already they are trying to dilute by saying, oh, the meaning of Moula is friend and so on and so forth. Then they would have said the main event was Hajj. And it was in reference to Hajj that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned all of these things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically chose a land by the name of Ghadir, so that whenever the word Ghadir would be mentioned, it will only be with regards to the wilayat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. No other event would be associated with it. Now I pose a question, and this is the question that we should be posing to our friends. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that I have completed your religion. I have perfected all of my ni'mat. You do celebration, don't you? When you graduate, when you achieve something, you celebrate. The day when the entire religion and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has become satisfied with Islam as a religion, why isn't the Muslim world celebrating? What is your reason for not celebrating? And tell me, what is that day? Because it can only be one of the two. It's either Furu'ud-Din or it's either Usuluddin. Usuluddin, the major ones are what? Tawheed, Nabuwat and Qayamat. These were already mentioned. From day one, the Prophet ﷺ has been talking about Tawheed, and he already announced his Nabuwat. And majority of the verses were already in Mecca with regards to the Day of Judgment. Furu'ud-Din, Namaz, Roza, Hajj, Zakat, Jihad, Amr bil Maroof, Nahy anil Munkar, these were all mentioned 8 years prior. So it means that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that today I have completed your religion, so it has to be something very, very important, and it has to be the core principle beliefs. It has to be the core principle. You're talking about the final prophet. You're talking about the final religion. You're talking about the final book. You're talking about the final piece of the jigsaw. It has to be in the same trajectory. It has to have the same weight as Tawheed, as Nabuwat, as Qayamat. What else can it be other than the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Imam Ali alayhi salam has appointed a divinely elected individual through whom till the Day of Judgment the A'imma are going to manage the affairs of humanity. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tied the knot of Nabuwat with Imamah till the Day of Judgment. There is no other possibility. There's no other possibility. As long as a person is rational, he will come to this conclusion. But when individuals are stubborn, when individuals have ulterior motive, they are not receptive to it. You know what the next thing they will say? How is it possible? I do not understand. 100,000 people forgot about Ghadir. I can literally talk for an hour. When a person becomes stubborn, he can forget anything. If a person becomes rigid, he can forget anything. You think about Shaitan. Shaitan, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Shaitan saw everything. Everything was in front of his eyes. He has seen angels, he's within the vicinity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 6,000 years. Allah commands him, prostrate to Adam. He knows Adam is superior to me because Allah is saying it. Allah does not lie. He knows very well. Allah does not need to spell it out. Look, Adam is superior to you, therefore you have to prostrate to Adam. He knows very well. But because he does not want to do it, he makes this baseless justification. I am made of fire, he is made of earth. I am not going to accept. Till the Day of Judgment, he is not going to accept due to this stubbornness. How is that possible? You will think, how can somebody be so stubborn? Well, there's an example. He's your enemy. There are so many examples in history. You only have to look. Who were the people who invited Imam Hussain alayhi salam? The people of Kufa. 18,000 individuals paid allegiance to Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil. Within a month, not a single individual was with Imam Hussain alayhi salam. They knew about the status of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. No one ever doubted. But did they not turn their backs? I will highly recommend that you read about the calamity of the Black Thursday. Raziyatu Yawm al-Khamis. This individual, a wretched individual, when the Prophet ﷺ was on his deathbed, he asked, can I have a pen and paper so I can write something very important? If you were to follow that, you will never ever go to astray. You know what this wretched individual, Umar ibn al-Khattab, you know what he says? Inna rajula la yahjur. This man has gone bonkers. Na'uzubillah summa astaghfirullah. He is hallucinating. He is talking nonsense. Look at the complete disregard. Look at the language. This is mentioned in all the books. This is not something that's from the Shias. Look at the disregard and disdain. He is referring to the greatest human being as man. Do you ever speak like that about any respected individual within your society? About a Moulana, would you ever say this man, for example? No. The greatest individual, he's on his deathbed. He said, this man, هذا الرجل لا يهجر إن الرجل لا يهجر. The Prophet ﷺ became very angry. He said, Qumu anni, leave me. And the Quran clearly says, if you hurt the Prophet ﷺ, the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be upon those individuals who anger the Prophet ﷺ, who hurt, who do aziyah to Prophet ﷺ. Think, if a man is dying, any individual who has any generosity in his heart would say, he is making his dying wishes, let me give him pen and paper. How heartless he must be. Secondly, if he was certain that Prophet ﷺ is going to talk nonsense, all he had to do was just give him the pen and paper. He could tell the world, look, I told you he was going to write gibberish, but why did you not do so? What was he afraid of? So how is it that he forgot that this is the Prophet ﷺ? And there are many instances. Few days before that, the Prophet ﷺ chose Usama ibn Zayd as the commander of the army to go on an expedition in Syria. He told all the companions, go with him. None of them, with the exception of few, the main ones did not go. Prophet ﷺ said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ تَخَلَّفَ جَيْشَ Usama. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse those individuals who do not go with Usama. Why did they not go? Did they forget this is the Prophet ﷺ speaking? In the Quran also with regards to the Jews, with regards to the Christians, it is mentioned they knew the genuineness of the Prophet ﷺ, but they did not want to admit it. They saw the reality of the Prophet ﷺ, that he is the final, but they didn't want to accept it. So if a person becomes stubborn, Nabi Musa alayhi salam's qawm, the people of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, they saw all the miracles of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. They saw how Fir'aun was drowned inside the river, the greatest superpower at the time. They saw all the miracles. They used to receive heavenly food from the skies. But Nabi Musa alayhi salam went for 40 days. And when he comes back, what do? They forget all the miracles and they start worshipping the cow. So there are plenty of examples, like I say. There are plenty of examples where people can easily forget if they have ulterior motives or if they are stubborn. This is a very, very brief summary. 5 मिनट मैं उर्दू में भी बोलूँ ताकि किसी को एतराज़ ना हो कि भाई सब इंग्लिश ही में बोल दिया, और तकरीबन मैं 25 मिनट बोल चुका हूँ. देखिए, एक जो बहुत बड़ा एतराज़ किया जाता है वो है कि आखिर कैसे मुमकिन है सवालात का मजमा जो है ना इतना बड़ा वाक़या भूल जाए कि नबी अकरम ने गदीर में ये चीज़ बयान की थी. देखिए, बहुत आसान है. ये सारे लोग तो नबी ज़ादे भी नहीं थे. नबी ज़ादे तो नहीं थे, आम लोग थे ना. नबी यूसुफ अलैहिस्सलाम के जो भाई थे उन्हें अपने नबी याकूब अलैहिस्सलाम से सुबह वादा किया था कि हम जो है नबी यूसुफ को सही और सालिम लेकर आएंगे. शाम तक के जो है ना खून से भरी जो है कमीज़ लेकर आ गए. शाम में कैसे आखिर ये भूल गए कि बाबा अल्लाह के नबी हैं, हमें नहीं करना चाहिए. नबी यूसुफ अलैहिस्सलाम ने कभी अपने जो है भाइयों के ऊपर हाथ भी नहीं उठाया था, कभी बदतमीज़ी भी नहीं की थी, मगर इतनी जलन, इतनी हिसादत कि उनको जो है कुएं में फेंक दिया. इमाम अली अलैहिस्सलाम ने तो इनके आबा और अजदाद को जो है ना वासिल जहन्नम किया था. सोचिए कितनी ज़्यादा दुश्मनी होगी. नबी यूसुफ अलैहिस्सलाम तो सिर्फ 12 साल उम्र थी, एक बच्चा थे, मगर भाइयों ने रहम नहीं किया. इमाम अली अलैहिस्सलाम तो फिर भी 30 साल की उम्र थी, दुश्मन रहम करेंगे उनके ऊपर? नबी यूसुफ अलैहिस्सलाम के जो भाइयों ने एतराज़ किया था वो क्या किया था कि अहब्बु इला अबीना, ये जो हैं ये ज़्यादा महबूब है हमारे बाप की निगाहों में. ये नहीं कहा था कि बाप हमसे मोहब्बत नहीं करते हैं, थोड़ी सी मोहब्बत ज़्यादा थी तो उसको तो तहम्मुल नहीं कर पाए. अब आप सोचिए इमाम अली अलैहिस्सलाम ने जिनकी पुश्तों को ख़त्म किया होगा कैसे तहम्मुल कर सकते हैं? नहीं होता. और ख़ुद कुरान में अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला फरमाता है वइज़ा रकिबल फुल्क दअवुल्लाह मुखलिसीन लहुद्दीन, यानी जब इंसान की कश्ती डूब रही होती है तो सब अल्लाह अल्लाह को याद करते हैं और बड़े खुलूस के साथ अल्लाह को याद करते हैं. और फिर अल्लाह फ़ौरन फरमाता है वइज़ा नजाहुम, जब हम उनको निजात देते थे अलल बर फ़इज़ा हुम युशरिकून, तो वो अल्लाह को फरामोश कर देते हैं, फिर शिरक करना शुरू कर देते हैं. तो अल्लाह को तो इंसान फरामोश कर देता है. यहाँ तो फिर भी नबी अकरम की बात हो रही कि नबी अकरम ने ऐलान, चलो दोस्ती ही सही, ऐलान दोस्ती ही किया, ठीक है, वो भी उसकी दोस्ती का ऐलान किया कि जिससे वो नफ़रत करते थे, बुग़्ज़ करते, तो कैसे नहीं भूलेंगे जब अल्लाह को इंसान भुला सकता है. दूसरी चीज़ जल्दी से कि दोस्त का माना क्यों नहीं होगा, क्यों नहीं हो सकता दोस्त का माना मौला का? क्योंकि अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला कुरान में खुद फरमाता है कि वल्लाहु यअसुमुका अनिन नास, अल्लाह जो है आपकी हिफाजत करेगा लोगों से. यानी इसका मतलब नबी अकरम वहशत ज़दा थे, वाक़ईन खौफ रखते थे लोगों से, और अल्लाह तसल्ली दे रहा है. कभी किसी को दोस्ती का ऐलान करना होता है तो वहशत ज़दा हो जाता है कि मैं तो बस दोस्ती का ऐलान करने वाला हूँ, मगर इतना ज़्यादा इंसान डरता है दोस्ती के ऐलान के लिए, कभी नहीं करता. दूसरी चीज़, कितनी शदीद अल्फाज अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला ने इस्तेमाल किए हैं, धमकी दी है, अल्टीमेटम दिया है. 3 जगह अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला ने सख्त अल्फाज इस्तेमाल किए हैं नबी अकरम के लिए. کہ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلَكَ، اگر آپ نے شرک کیا تو آپ کے سارے اعمال حبط ہو جائیں گے، نابود ہو جائیں گے آپ اگر آپ نے شرک کیا۔ دوسری جگہ کیا کہ وَإِذَا تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ، اگر آپ نے تحریف کی ہماری وحی کی، یعنی اس کو توڑا مروڑا، اس میں جو اوپر نیچے کی، تو پھر ہم آپ کی رگ گردن کو اڑا دیں گے۔ اور تیسری جگہ کیا فرمایا کہ اگر جو ہے نا آپ نے ابلاغ نہیں کیا اس میسج کا تو پھر کیا ہوگا کہ آپ کی جتنی بھی کاوشیں ہیں پوری 23 سال میں کچھ اللہ کے نزدیک قبول نہیں۔ چلو یہ تو سمجھ میں آتا ہے کہ شرک اختیار کیا بہت بڑا گناہ ہے، اس پہ اللہ کہے کہ تو آپ نابود، یہ بھی سمجھ میں آتا ہے کہ اللہ کے پیغام میں انسان جو ہے نا توڑ مروڑ کرے، اس میں تحریف کرے تو نابودی۔ مگر امام علی علیہ السلام کی دوستی کے اعلان میں اللہ سبحانہ وتعالیٰ اتنا جو نا سخت ہو جائے کہ اس میں بھی نابودی ہے، تو پھر سوچنا چاہیے انسان کو کہ اگر امام علی علیہ السلام کی دوستی کا اعلان اتنا زیادہ اہم ہے تو کیسے اللہ برداشت کر سکتا کہ خلیفہ غیر از امام علی علیہ السلام ہو سکتا؟ ہو نہیں سکتا۔ اور چوتھی چیز جو بہت زیادہ اہم ہے کہ دوستی کے اعلان کے بعد بیعت کون کرتا ہے؟ وہ بھی 2 دن تک کے لگاتار بیعت، یعنی کہ میں دوستی کی بیعت کر رہا ہوں اس طریقے سے نہیں ہوتا۔ مبارکبادی دینا، اس کے بعد گلے ملنا۔ کبھی ہوا ایسے کہ بھائی یہ میرے دوست ہیں، آپ لوگ آئیے جشن میں اور جو ہے نا ہم تبریک و تہنیت کا جو ہے نا جشن رکھیں گے کیونکہ میں نے جو ہے نا اعلان دوستی ان سے کر لیا؟ نہیں ہوتا۔ اچھا، سب سے پہلے کس نے جو ہے تبریک پیش کی تھی؟ چچا میاں نے تو کی تھی سب سے پہلے، جو تبریک جو ہے کی تھی انہی نے پیش کی تھی، خلیفہ نے کی تھی سب سے۔ بخن بخن لکا یبنا ابی طالب، کیا مطلب؟ اچھا، جب کسی کا بہت زیادہ احترام کرنا ہوتا ہے تو لفظ بابا کا نام استعمال کیا جاتا ہے۔ اگر بابا نعوذ باللہ کافر ہوتے تو یہ تانا ہوتا، یہ وہ نہیں ہوتا۔ اچھا، دوسری چیز کیا فرمایا اس کے فوراً بعد؟ اصبحت مولا کل مؤمن و مؤمنات، آپ آج جو ہے مولا بن گئے ہیں، یعنی دوست بن گئے ہیں تمام مومن اور مومنات کے۔ مومن کا دوست تو سمجھ میں آتا ہے، مومنات کا دوست کا کیا مطلب ہے؟ یہ کچھ مومنات متاح جائز نہیں ہے مگر مومنات سے دوستی جائز، یہ کیسے ہو سکتا ہے؟ یعنی عقل انسان جو ہے نا سوچے کہ یہ کیسے ممکنات ہے۔ شاید اب ہم کو بھی حسن ظن رکھنا چاہیے، شاید وہ یہ کہنا چاہ رہے مومن کے ساتھ دوست، مومنات کے ساتھ سہیلی بنا لے رہے ہیں، اور کیا ہو سکتا ہے؟ کیا یعنی عقل استعمال کرے انسان، عقل استعمال کرے۔ بس آخری بات میں کہوں گا کہ تاکہ بات بہت زیادہ لمبی نہ ہو جائے، ہم کو دفاع کرنا ہے غدیر کا۔ یہ آیت جو ہے جس میں اس کو سب کو حفظ بھی ہونی چاہیے، اور اسی سے انسان جو ہے نا ولایت امام علی علیہ السلام کو ثابت بھی کر سکتا ہے۔ کیا؟ یا ایھا الرسول، اعلان ہو رہا ہے کہ اے رسول۔ رسول کا لفظ استعمال کیا، اس کا مطلب مسئلہ رسالت کا ہے، سیاسی مسئلہ ہے، یہ دوستی کا مسئلہ نہیں ہے، وگرنہ یا ایھا النبی کا لفظ استعمال ہوتا ہے، جیسے کہ ہوا ہے جب شخصی مسئلہ ہوتا تھا ازواج سے متعلق تو اللہ جو ہے نا اس طریقے سے خطاب کرتا تھا یا ایھا النبی، مگر یہاں کیا کہا؟ یا ایھا الرسول، یعنی سیاسی مسئلہ ہے۔ ایک، بلغ ما انزل الیک من ربک، آپ ابلاغ کریے جو اللہ سبحانہ وتعالیٰ نے جس کا حکم کر رکھا ہے۔ یہاں پہ دیکھیں کہا من ربک، یہ نہیں کہا من اللہ۔ ابلاغ کریے اس چیز کا کہ جو ہم نے آپ سے کہا ہے کہ جو آپ کے رب کی طرف سے، نہیں ہے کہ اللہ کی طرف سے۔ یعنی رب کا کیا؟ رب کون ہوتا ہے؟ رب مربی ہوتا ہے جو تربیت دیتا ہے، یعنی اللہ خود کہہ رہا ہے کہ اگر اس ولایت کا آپ نے ابلاغ نہیں کیا تو اب تربیت میں نہیں کرنے والا، اسی میں تربیت ہے انسان کی۔ فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ، اچھا اگر میں کہوں اٹھیے اگر آپ نہیں اٹھے، بیٹھیے اگر آپ نہیں بیٹھے، تو ہونا چاہیے تھا بلغ کہا ہے فَإِن لَمْ تُبَلِّغْ، اگر آپ نے تبلیغ نہیں کی، مگر کیا کہا فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ، اگر آپ نے فعلہ کا مطلب ہوتا ہے فعلیت میں لے کر آنا، یعنی صرف زبانی طور پر جو ہے نا آپ کو ابلاغ نہیں کرنا ہے، ایسا بے نظیر اور بے سابقہ منظر قائم کرنا ہے کہ جس کو کوئی بھلا ہی نہ سکے۔ اونٹوں کی پالانوں کا منبر مگر کسی نے دیکھا تھا؟ امام علی علیہ السلام کا ہاتھ نبی اکرم سے اوپر ہو، وہ بھی 1.25 لاکھ کا مجمع ہو، 2 دن تک کے لوگ بیعتیں دے پانی غدیر میں، یعنی پھر کوئی بھلا نہیں سکتا اس کو، عمل سے آپ کو کرنا ہے۔ فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَتَهُ، اگر آپ نے نہیں کیا تو عموماً جو ترجمہ کیا جاتا ہے وہ یہ کہ بھیا آپ نے اپنی رسالت انجام نہیں دی، یعنی 23 سال کی جو بھی آپ نے زحمت کی وہ انجام نہیں دی۔ نہیں، یہاں بھی ایک ظریف نکتہ ہے، اگر یہ ہوتا کہ آپ کی رسالت تو یہ ہوتا فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَتَكَ، جو عربی سے واقفیت رکھتے ہیں کہ کھا جو ہے یعنی، مگر یہاں ہے کہ رسالتہ، اس کی رسالت، یہ ہو کی جو اس کی ہے، یہ ضمیر کہاں جا رہی ہے؟ اللہ کی طرف. آپ نے اللہ کی رسالت کو انجام نہیں دیا. اللہ کی رسالت کہاں سے آغاز ہوتی ہے؟ نبی آدم علیہ السلام سے. یعنی جتنے بھی انبیاء نے اللہ کے پیغام کو پہنچایا ہے، سب کے اوپر آپ پانی پھیر دیں گے اگر آپ نے اس کا ابلاغ نہیں کیا. تو بہت اہم ہے. یعنی اس سے وزن کا احساس ہونا چاہیے. اسی آیت سے انسان جو ہے حقانیت ہے امام علی علیہ السلام کو ثابت کر سکتا ہے کہ کوئی اور معنی رکھ ہی نہیں سکتا، کوئی اور معنی نہیں. میں تقریباً 35 منٹ بول گیا اور میں جانتا ہوں میں اس سے زیادہ، میرے والد محترم کبھی اس سے زیادہ نہیں بولتے تھے. تو بولنے کو تو بہت زیادہ ہے، جب بولنے کا انسان کو ہنر آ جاتا ہے تو انسان بولنے لگتا ہے. مگر بہرحال میں اور بھی اس سے زیادہ نہیں بولوں گا. پروردگار ہماری زحمات کو قبول فرمائے. پالنے والے جتنے بھی فیوزات، جتنے بھی برکات، جتنے بھی عطیات تو نے مد نظر رکھے ہیں والیان حیدر کرار کے لیے، ان سب کو ہم پر نواز. پالنے والے ہم سب کو توفیق عطا فرما کہ جس طریقے سے اہل بیت علیہم السلام چاہتے ہیں کہ ہم پیغام عید غدیر کو نشر کریں، پروردگار وہ توفیق عطا فرما کہ ہم اس کی ادائیگی کر سکیں. پالنے والے تمام مومنین و مومنات جو یہاں حاضر ہیں، جو حاجت مند ہیں، جن کی جو بھی حوائج ہیں، ان کو بحق امام علی علیہ السلام ان کو پورا فرما. آپ سب کو آج کی مبارک تہہ دل سے بہت بہت مبارک ہو.